Chelsea versus Sunderland, tactical preview. Today we're going to be going over how Chelsea could line up against Sunderland, a few of the sort of key tactical battles in this match, and just sort of speak about the lineup and how sort of Sunderland could approach this, and also how Chelsea could approach this. Quite a big game for Chelsea, of course, coming off the back of 3 in a row. It might be 4 in a row now, actually, in all competitions, with that win in midweek against Ajax. So, without further ado, I just want to jump into it today because want to try and make these videos a little bit more compact than they have been in recent weeks. But let's sort of start with just a few stats that I just think are quite key for this Sunderland side to just sort of put it out there and make it sort of add the context to how they're going to approach this game. Now, Sunderland are the team with the second highest percentage of pass direction being forwards in a game. So 36.4% of their passes are forwards in a game. They're very direct. They're willing to be direct with sort of Isidore being the main guy up top, being direct from those moments and playing off of him. They want to sort of create attacks quickly from the back. And again, just sort of try and exploit those moments in transition and sort of hurt teams with that more direct approach, especially going long into sort of the forwards. So that is something key to sort of point out because only Brentford with 37% play more forward passes in a game. Just for context, Chelsea played 27.4% passes forward. So quite a bit more direct from Sunderland in that sense of trying to sort of go from this point to this point as quickly as possible up the pitch. Another stat to mention, and again, just to sort of like harp on that same point, is the long balls attempted per 90. Sunderland's 73.3, which is sixth in the Premier League. The only teams playing more than Sunderland are Newcastle, Tottenham, United, Bournemouth and Wolves, all of which you would consider quite direct teams this season. So that is another pointer that they're playing quite a lot of long balls forward. And again, they're looking to be direct. And that sort of match up against Isidore and being strong in that first duel against him is going to be key. So that sort of brings me on to, let's talk about the centre-back pairing for this game. Because we've spoke about it a lot tactically in the last few weeks, how playing in this sort of 2-3 shape that will probably shape up in again in this game, and I'll speak about why with how they sort of look to press. The issues have been on this left centre-back position with Badiashile and Colwill both out. Now, a lot of people have been saying, like, just play Hato there. Now, the two things that I have an issue with there is, one, Acheampong and Hato, both inexperienced, both sort of, again, they're learning on the job. They are both technically hybrid profiles as well. Neither of them are out-and-out centre-halves. I think Acheampong will become an out-and-out centre-half, but again, he's still more of a hybrid profile, as is Hato. Now, Hato has more experience because, again, he's played 100-odd games for Ajax. He's captained them. He's played for the Dutch national team. Very experienced for a youngster, but he is still young and he has still got his deficiencies, especially in a game like this where he's going to have to be physical. He's a smaller central defender. He's quick and he's sort of sharp with his positioning and how he looks to jump out from the back. But against a team that's going to look to generate most of their attacks going long and being direct into their centre forward and looking for those flick-ons into the channels and just getting crosses into the box, that is something else that they will do a lot of. High volume of crosses into the box. I feel like you have to approach this game. You can't make that sacrifice to get Hato in the team for the on-ball purposes. So in this game, I think Acheampong starts. I think he deserves to start. And I think he's actually shown that he can deal with a lot of that sort of box presence type of centre forwards in the last sort of in the games that he's been given this season, because he's dealt with Mateta, probably one of the best in the league at that exact sort of act that he is having to defend against. He dealt with Isaac, not as much of a sort of box presence striker. Obviously, he has box presence, but in a different sort of manner. And he also did it against Awoniyi for Forest, who, again, offered similar but also somewhat different physical traits to sort of use them against him in direct manner. So Acheampong for me is in the team. The question is around who plays this left centre-back role, because the options here, like I say, Hato for me isn't an option in this game purely for that reason. And Fofana played 90 minutes, looked like he was cramping up. I just don't think you should shove him in. And I also just think that, especially on the wrong side of defence, maybe Acheampong would go over and Fofana would start here. But I just wouldn't do that. So the two options for me is Tosin and Chalobah. Both, one of which, they'd have to play as the left centre-back. So I would probably go in this game for Trevor Chalobah. Now, A lot of people will say toss in because of the height and that sort of added ability to win that first duel against Isidore, which, yes, that can make sense. A Chempong is also huge. So if you give a Chempong that responsibility and allow Chalobah to be sort of either the aggressor or the sweeper, whether a Chempong has to jump up with Isidore and Chalobah has to sweep behind, or vice versa, if Isidore sort of drops off, Chalobah can sort of sweep this space inside. I do think it'd be good to keep these two playing together for this week. And it is more so as well, not just about the defensive sort of qualities that they bring, but like I say, with the dealing with the aerial duels. But I also think that in the 2-3, that despite Chalobah's shortcomings within that, I still think he's better suited to this role, especially in transition when these two players are pushed forward, than Adarabioyo to defending those wide spaces out here. So for that reason, I would start Chalobah, because if we now sort of move on to the how I think Sunderland are going to press, they're very much a sort of 4-4-2 pressing side. Now they start with those two strikers. Well, they start with one striker and then Enzo Lafie, who's been playing in the 10. Whoever's playing in the 10 will sort of join that front two in the press. And then you have that sort of four behind. And then off the picture, you also got the back line of four, if we do that. Now, one thing I wanted to highlight again here is that you can actually sort of draw Sunderland out by playing in those wide areas, I think. And it can create these big gaps, and it can like one thing that I will point out in this game is I do think that you can create these gaps quite nicely between the centre back and fullback, because the fullbacks do have quite a responsibility to basically mark, like they are told that is going to be a bit more of a 1v1 situation. They have to deal with that. They have to get out to that player, and that can not only create the drift between these two, but it also means that there'll be a good opportunity for Chelsea to get those 1v1 duels in this game with the defenders. So that's an important factor when we're talking about this as well. So I just wanted to sort of highlight that, because I think as you can draw them out, if you can sort of find those opportunities to get the ball into the box, then I do think you can overload, or at least find those 3v3 situations here at the back post, which is something Chelsea have been looking to do anyway with the sort of in-swinging crosses to the back post. So I do think that this is something that could be highlighted and look to exploit in this game. If we move on again, this is sort of where they're sitting in this 4-4-2, but it's a little bit deeper. So you've got the 4 here, very narrow, very compact. Then you've got the 4 here. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure I've just realised that the other guy is back here. And then you've got, so it'll be like this. Like this. And then like this. And what you'll notice is how deep that 2 is, and they'll allow these players to sort of get on the ball. So the 2 centre-backs in this position is going to be key, that they can get on the ball and sort of make things happen and sort of step onto Sunderland, which is why a Chempong in this game is going to be quite key, sort of stepping up with the ball and carrying to force a few of these players to jump out and create that space between the lines in here. So a Chempong is going to be key in this game, especially if this player is not going to be a left footer on this side of the pitch here, because then, of course, those angles are going to be restricted to sort of playing down one side. So a Chempong is going to be very important in that manner. They will look to press high from these goal kicks. Now, I say that, it's still semi-reserved in that sort of 4-4-2. Now, the main thing that I think they're going to do, and it's something that I've noticed in a lot of the games I've watched of Sunderland this week, is drop the centre forward onto the number 6, which is something that we sort of came up against a few times this season when playing against teams playing in a back 5. So I do think if we sort of move this into position of how I would like the team to line up. Now, yes, the rest of the team, sort of the way I've picked it, is to sort of play in this 4-2-3, this 4-3-3/4-2-3-1, which molds into a 2-3 base here. And then you've got the 2 players between the lines, Pedro and Fernandez. João Pedro hopefully being able to play between the lines so that Guiu can sort of be that one that's stretching the back line and playing up front. Again, Maresca said in the press conference today that he's willing to play Guiu and he's ready to start. He wasn't happy with his training, but he's now ready to start Premier League games. So that could be big in getting João Pedro into the 10 for this game. It wouldn't surprise me if Pedro starts up front again, because it is against a back 4 team, but it is just who plays in here as well. Like, does he play then Esteban in the 10 to get him in there, play Neto here, and maybe have, say, Gittins again, or Garnacho either, just so you can have those 2 1v1 wingers that we spoke about earlier. But I think it's more likely that we see maybe João Pedro sort of dropped in, Guy there, Fernandez, Esteban over here, and sort of do it like this in that 4-2 or that 2-3-4-1. So in how they're going to press, I do think that they will drop Isidore or whoever's up front onto Casado and be a little bit more passive with the defenders. So if we're going to say that they're going to do that and they're going to look to sort of mark Casado out of the game, now Lafille will sort of be the one that's pressing a little bit more onto the back line, but you'll have that overload because if Isidore does jump, then Casado becomes the free man. If he doesn't, then you've got the 2v1 here. So that allows these two players to sort of push up and either invert a little bit or come wide and sort of like force these two wide players issues because those wide players do want to sit quite compact as well. So if these two come inside and sort of allow and give a body for those wide players to sort of step onto, then all of a sudden you can try, if you can really stretch the pitch here in these two wide areas, like I said, you can try to expand that back four where this four in the middle are trying to stay a little bit more narrow. And I do think that the wide areas are going to be key in this game in terms of trying to find progression to them. And in order to do that, by having these two come inside and almost act as screens, because I've spoke about this before, if these two step inside and the bodies are here, they sort of step even more narrow because they want to attach to these two players here. Then all of a sudden, this pass, if a Chempong and Chalobah are split, this pass becomes a little bit more easier because James can sort of almost be a blocker and be in the way of this man and sort of shield that pass to make it a little bit easier, a little bit wider, a little bit of a bigger sort of passing gate for that to happen. So that 1v1, those wide entries are going to be important, a really big factor of this game, before then maybe coming inside and sort of connecting with these two players in the pockets, rather than looking to completely split into the pockets from here. I think, if anything, it would maybe be to go wide and come inside after that. Because of how compact they're going to be, and even at times, these two will sort of be quite willing to sit in and do the job and sort of almost not go man for man, but because you've got those two wide players ready to step up here, these two are quite happy to sort of marshal that space and try to stop these two getting on the ball. If they come deep, then they'll probably follow. And if they sit in behind, then they'll try and screen it off and be a little bit more tighter to them in that space. So they will look to be compact in that 4-4-2 block. So you do need to make sure that you're spreading that back four as wide as possible, as I've just sort of said, and almost looking to use Casado just to sort of bounce passes, if anything, because Isidore is going to be quite tight to him. Look to bounce passes and sort of evade this one-man press and then allow these two players to step forward and then these two players to sort of move on and then find those wide entries. That's going to be the sort of key aspect of this game. So the wide players are going to be extremely key. Again, just another example that Isidore is the one deeper here on Casemiro. You got Enzo Lafille jumping higher. You got the winger having to sort of jump and apply pressure. And then you've got the central midfielders here, two central midfielders. And then, yeah, he's sort of between the two. So as you can see again there, look, the easy pass, if you can maybe have to bounce it to get it out there because of how this has sort of been pressed. But the best area to access is this wide area because the distance isn't necessarily great yet. And then when he does apply that distance and like really look to get tight to him, Burmo might be able to spin off and attack that space as this passing gate gets bigger. Because like I say, that will stretch and that passing gate will become very big between the fullback and the centre-back. So I think that Chelsea can actually exploit this Sunderland team and how they look to press. However, there is points in this game that could hurt us. Of course, the directness of the team, we're going to have to be switched on. The choices at centre back are going to be key, and yeah, I think that honestly, the wingers and the two central defenders decide this game for Chelsea. I think the 1v1 duels in these areas, and then the ability to deal with Wilson Isidore from long balls is going to be the two sort of key factors in this game as to whether Chelsea get a result with ease or whether we are sort of made to battle more than we maybe want to in this game and exert a lot more energy than we probably need to by not controlling the scenarios as well as we can. So that is the general analysis for this Sunderland game. I will be back with a review on probably Monday for the game. And also after the game on Saturday on Sky Sports at about 6 o'clock, I will be on there talking about the game. So probably about 10-15 minutes worth of sort of breaking it down, a few questions, weather sort of stuff on Sky Sports News. So don't miss that, 6 p.m. UK time on Saturday. And then, of course, there'll be the normal review on YouTube that will probably come out on Monday as well. So aside from that, leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one.